Welcome to Ouch. Was that a ghost? This podcast may contain graphic material, which some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Help me.
Now that we covered that, here's your host, Liz.
Located in Estes Park, Colorado, in the heart of the Rockies, sits the Stanley Hotel, one of the most well-known haunted hotels in the United States, and arguably the most popular hotel in Colorado. The Stanley Hotel was built by Freeland Oscar Stanley. Freeland Stanley was a co-founder of the Stanley Motor Carriage Company, the other being his twin brother Francis. The Stanley brothers were inventors and businessmen. The brothers worked on all sorts of inventions from a very young age. As children, they would make toys to sell to other children. The idea for the Stanley Motor Carriage Company came about when Francis's wife fell off of a bike and swore them off. Francis replied to her, quote, "Never you mind, I will build you something so that we can ride together in safety and comfort." And this resulted in the invention of the first steam-powered car. They were known for being very quiet and very fast. In 1906, setting a record at 127 miles per hour. But when more gas-powered cars came along, the company ended up going out of business. The idea behind it still continues on in the Stanley Steamer carpet cleaner, which you've probably heard a commercial for. The brothers also had a big part in revolutionizing photography. Freeland was diagnosed with tuberculosis or consumption. This was back in 1903. When he lived in Newton, Massachusetts. Back then, the treatment for lungers, as they were called, was to get fresh air, ride horses, or go to dry climates. So Freeland opted to go to Colorado. He and his wife took the trip. There, they spent the summer in Estes Park in a rustic cabin that they rented, which seemed to work, and by the end of the summer, he was noticeably doing better. Even after his recovery, which, I don't know, I thought you needed antibiotics to be recovered from tuberculosis, but what do I know? He continued summering in Estes Park, Colorado every year, but he didn't really care for how rustic the accommodations were. At the time, most of the land in the area was owned by this guy, the 4th Earl of Dunraven, who during the Homestead Act had laid claim to about 15,000 acres in Estes Valley between 1872 and 1884, because he wanted to make this big private hunting area for himself and the other wealthy elite, I guess. Then he just went back across the pond. Stanley, so appreciative of his cure, decided he wanted to put Estes Park on the map. And in 1907, he purchased some land from Dunraven, which I'm sure the locals were pretty excited to see that guy leave. Freeland began working on this 48-room hotel for others in search of a place to stay while they were suffering from tuberculosis, or the elite that just wanted a vacation in style in this beautiful area. Freeland was even ready to name the hotel after Dunraven to, I guess, pay homage to the previous landowner. But the locals rallied together and 180 people signed a buckskin petition that said, no, name it after yourself. Thus came about the name Stanley Hotel. The hotel and concert hall were completed by 1909, and within the year, the manor house was complete, it's really cool how they did that. It's just a smaller version of the hotel itself. The only problem that Freeland Stanley was left facing was how to get his guests to the hotel from the nearby town's train station. Freeland was like, I got it. He made some steam-powered multi-seat cars called mountain wagons, and he would have a fleet at the hotel to be at his guests' disposal. The hotel opened. There he had a uniformed staff. Every room had a telephone, a bathroom for each pair of rooms with running water. It was going to be powered by electricity. Back then, this was a rarity. Some fixtures were also set to run from gas or electricity just because the lack of power that they had, like this auxiliary gas lighting system. So if the electricity went out, they would have gas running in that they could light. June 25th, 1911, when a maid went into room 217 with a flame which ignited the gas-filled pipes. Because, I mean, back then, gas didn't have any added scent, so it was odorless. And this resulted in an explosion that took out about 10% of the hotel, injured a housekeeper and several waiters. An article circulated by the Associated Press the following day said, quote, "The Stanley Hotel, built at a cost of $500,000, was partly wrecked last night by an explosion of gas. 8 persons were injured, 1 seriously. None of the guests were injured. Elizabeth Wilson of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a hotel employee, was hurled from the second to the first floor, and both ankles were broken." So Elizabeth Wilson was thought to be that maid that went into the room that was injured. But the hotel was repaired and back up and running again. And in 1926, Freeland sold the hotel to a company, and they almost ran it into the ground. While it was in foreclosure, Freeland purchased the hotel back and sold it to a hotelier in 1930. In 1941, a year after his wife's passing, Freeland died of a heart attack in Newton, Mass. He and his wife loved that hotel. It was less of a business and more of a passion project. He even said that he spent more than he made every summer when it was open. But what really put this hotel on the map was what began in 1974, when Stephen King and his wife spent the night at the Stanley Hotel. This was right before the off-season, like the day before it was going to close up, so the hotel was pretty bare. He stayed in room 217 at the nearly deserted hotel. At a point during the night, he wandered the empty halls, went down to the bar, which was pretty much barren, and had a drink. The story goes that Stephen King that night had a nightmare where he saw his son getting chased by this huge fire hose before the fire hose swallowed his son up. He woke up drenched in sweat. He got up, went out on the balcony, had a cigarette, and by then the seeds of the Shining novel had been planted into his head. In 1977, the book was published, and then in 1980, the book was adapted into a movie by Stanley Kubrick, which was partially filmed at the Timberline Lodge. The people at the Timberline Lodge asked the director to change the room number to not lose guests. So they did. They changed the room number from 217 to 237, which you see in the movie. And by the way, I was looking into how this movie was made, and poor Shelley Duvall, who played Wendy, she was said to have been so stressed during the filming that her hair started to fall out. I mean, the bat scene alone, she had to do 127 times. This set a world record for the most takes in a film. The filming was very dark. There are theories that I've seen also that kind of go off. But there was one that Kubrick hid in the film, how he helped fake the Apollo 11 moon landing, because I guess Danny's sweater, which had the Apollo 11 on it, and picking the room number 237, which I don't see how that correlates to faking the moon landing, but what do I know? When the filming was almost done, a fire broke out on set. It seemed to be like a hot mess, but I mean, it was brilliance what came out of it. The film is amazing. It's one of my favorite. I mean, it's a cult classic film. But I guess King didn't love the movie, in part because they did not film at the Stanley, so King would go on and make a Shining TV miniseries in 1997 that was filmed at the Stanley. In 1983, with the popularity of The Shining, the owners decided for the first time ever to make it a year-round resort instead of just a summer, a seasonal hotel. And in 1994, the hotel was also used for the film Dumb and Dumber. And during the filming, there was a night when Jim Carrey decided to stay the night at the hotel. And he stayed in room 217. And after a few hours, he was like, nope, and left in the middle of the night. He never publicly said what happened, but I can assume it was not good. So now on to the hauntings. In room 217, the room that I just mentioned that Jim Carrey stayed in, and the one where Stephen King stayed in and had his nightmare, this room was coincidentally the same room as the gas explosion in 1911 that injured Elizabeth Wilson, which she did recover from, and she kept working at the hotel until the 1950s. Guests in this room have reported lights turning on and off, their bags being unpacked or packed, or to find their clothes folded, which all that sounds kind of great. Like if you're going to haunt me and you want to do some chores, do it up. Or some people even report that their bed is made, But sometimes when you're still sleeping in it, the bed would be made around you. It just seems like a lot of housekeeping events that happen in this room. Other guests report having their shoes lined up at the end of the bed. Shadows have been seen passing through the walls in this room. Also in room 217, people report temperature changes or just the feeling of being watched. While some couples that are not married report feeling this presence in between them. And some people think that this is Elizabeth Wilson, like none of that before marriage, enforcing her beliefs. Freeland Stanley has been reported wandering the halls and keeping tabs on employees that work at his beloved hotel, as well as his wife Flora, who has been seen and heard in the concert hall that was added to the hotel for her. People report her playing the piano in death, as she had so enjoyed doing in life. The fourth floor is said to be pretty active as well in the hotel, previously used as storage and a place where children and women would stay, like the females employees or nannies used to stay up there. People report hearing children laughing or running up and down the hallway, but when they go and look, nothing is there. Room 401 is known as Lord Dunraven's room, the one that was buying up the land to have his own hunting area. His spirit is thought to frequent this room. He seems kind of pervy, though. Women report their hair being played with or the feeling of being touched on their shoulder, waist, or leg. Men are said to feel less welcome in this room. In room 407, people report getting tucked in. A little boy that stayed there told his mother that one night he kept kicking the covers off and he kept getting covered again. And the mother said she never woke up in the night. While other guests report feeling like someone is sitting on their bed, and after turning on the lights, they find that nobody was there, but they do find an indent left in the bed by whoever or whatever was sitting there. In room 413, people have reported an old man in old-timey clothing just standing in the corner, or closets shutting on their own, or their belongings being moved around. In room 418, blankets are moved in the middle of the night, things are moved around the room, lights have been reported to be turned on and off, and children have said that they have been tickled by unseen children in the room. In room 428, aka the Kissing Cowboys room, people have reported disembodied footsteps or chairs being rearranged, and some people have even reported waking up to find a cowboy at the foot of their bed. And the yuckiest of all in this room is Rocky Mountain Jim, the cowboy, who is said to kiss females on the forehead. There's also a young girl named Lucy. The story goes that she was an orphan or a runaway that was hiding in the basement under the concert hall. And when some workers found her, they forced that 12 or 13-year-old little girl out of the hotel. And that night, the temperatures went below freezing and Lucy froze to death. Pictures have been taken in the hotel that people think is Lucy, or people report seeing a little girl on tours when later on they found out that no little girl was there. Lucy is said to shut doors or play with the light switches, and she's pretty active with flashlights with paranormal investigators. It's also been speculated that the main staircase in the Stanley may act as a paranormal vortex, and maybe this is why the hotel is so active. There's actually a picture of the main staircase with this apparition at the top left. I personally can't tell if it was supposed to be a man or a woman. Some people think that it was maybe Freeland or Flora. I don't know. Then there is the maintenance man, a man named Paul who worked at the hotel from 1995 to 2005. While working there, he was known to enforce the 11 p.m. curfew. People have reported hearing "get out" or being pushed late at night to those not adhering to the curfew in the concert hall, or he is reported to just flicker the lights, maybe just saying, hey. Even though there are so many spirits here, none of them seem to be really negative or evil. It just seems like a very active place. The Manor House, which is now called the Lodge, is a restaurant on the hotel's property. At the hotel, they do a Shining Ball recreation now. They also host the Stanley Film Festival. They have murder mystery dinners. Like what? That's crazy. That would be so fun. Seances, tours. They have a wine bar, gift shop, and a masquerade ball on Halloween. In 2015, the hotel built the Shining movie type maze on the property, which before the filming that didn't exist on the property, but because of the Shining film and that whole maze scene kind of built up the popularity. So they were like, let's do it. The coolest feature, in my opinion, is that underground at the Stanley, there's a secret area hidden behind a bookcase that's an entrance to like a speakeasy. Described on the website as, quote, hidden beneath the original carriage house of the historic Stanley Hotel, there's a secret subterranean theater where the greatest magicians in the world performed. The other thing I saw on the Stanley Hotel website was the Frozen Dead Guy tour. It's an exhibit, I guess, featuring Brado Morstal. It seems like they just talk about cryogenics. I'm not really sure what exactly happens on that tour, but I'm definitely in. The now 140-room hotel is filled with so much history, but also has modern amenities. I'm curious, if you went to stay there, would you stay in Stephen King's room or up on the 4th floor? Well, thank you everybody so much for listening, and if you have gone, let me know if you've experienced anything. I'm really curious. Thank you everybody for listening. Till next time, bye.
Thank you for listening. If you need more content or just want to help support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com and search Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you need some snazzy merch, you can find it at crowdmade.com by searching Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you have a story you'd like to share, you can email it to ouchwasthataghost@yahoo.com. You can also find us on Facebook and all the other social media platforms under Ouch, Was That a Ghost?
Help me.
All links can also be found on ouchwasthataghost.com.